So, a fresh new week has arrived, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week, based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week was a roller coaster of emotions in the NBA world, as we saw some incredibly unfortunate injury news, and even more trade rumors have begun to swirl, with the trade deadline just a few days away, so we definitely have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now. So if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, I want to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. PrizePicks is a skill-based, real-money daily fantasy sports game where you select 2 to 6 players and guess if they will hit more or less than their projection, and if you get it right, you win. Plus, with their new Demons and Goblins lines, you can now win up to 100 times your original entry. Obviously, we're all basketball fans here, but PrizePicks has almost every sport you can think of available to choose from and play. To add to the fun, they also offer frequent bonuses, discounts, and weekly promotions, such as Taco Tuesday and Flex Friday, plus so many more specialty free spaces to watch for throughout the year, so you don't want to miss those. I personally will be playing the Patrick Mahomes free space for the Super Bowl, where he needs to throw for just 1 yard, plus Bojan Bogdanovic to score over 17.5 points, and Jaylen Brown to score over 18.5 points for this week's entry. To sign up, go down to the link in the description and use promo code REFERENCE when you sign up to get a deposit match bonus of up to $100. Once again, thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Louis, and he says that the Lakers are about to do the same exact thing as they did last year, where they completely turn things around after the trade deadline, and in the end, it's still going to be them and Denver battling it out in the West. Well, this is definitely a take that is pretty clearly writing off most of the Western Conference as weak and fraudulent, because the Lakers have looked as mediocre as it gets this year, currently sitting in 9th place in the West standings. There really hasn't been a whole lot to inspire faith of a run back to the conference finals for this group, as they still need to worry about making the playoffs in the first place, but as the original take states, they're no stranger to these circumstances. Last year, at this time in the season, the Lakers were in 13th place in the West standings, looking dead in the water, but after a few big moves, they rejuvenated their season and made the run that everyone expected of them. They're obviously capable of competing with any team on any given night. The alarming issue is that they have most of the same core from last year's team post-deadline still here, and they haven't maintained the level that they were playing at that point last year, making it seem like the lightning in a bottle that they caught has been lost. The trade market this year isn't lacking in big names being potentially available, but the question of whether they would be enough to sway the season is a serious question. DeJounte Murray is the player most heavily linked with the Lakers, and while he would be an upgrade at the point guard position over D'Angelo Russell objectively, I'm not sure the Lakers present a different situation for Murray than the Hawks do in terms of how he'd be used. The issue for Atlanta is that Trae Young is such a high-usage player, so DeJounte's presence isn't quite the game changer they thought it would be. And in LA, LeBron is still a high-usage guy, Anthony Davis is still their go-to scoring option, and that moves DeJounte even further down the totem pole. And realistically, the Lakers need all the shooting that they can get because their spacing is pretty poor right now, so moving D'Angelo Russell, who is the team's best shooter right now, for Murray only creates more spacing issues. I'm going to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers somehow figured it out, because any team with LeBron James is capable of doing so. I just personally don't see it happening this year. Then when it comes to the postseason, it's fair to question the unproven groups like the Timberwolves and the Thunder at the top, but barring injuries, the Clippers have an absolutely loaded team, the Nuggets are not going anywhere, and the Suns are back healthy playing good basketball lately, so there is a tougher road this year than there was last year too. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Short Balla, and he says that the Knicks are actually overrated despite their hot streak because they beat up on all the losing teams but still have a losing record against the teams with winning records. We're getting to the point in the season where fans and analysts alike are really starting to hone in on which teams can legitimately compete for a championship and which teams are only good enough to make the playoffs but not actually make any noise once they get there. For years, the Knicks have been stuck in the latter of those two groups, if they even did make the playoffs. But something feels different about this year's Knicks team. The Knicks made a big trade for OG Anunoby at the end of December, and since his debut with the team, they've only lost 3 total times. With a record of 15-3 since Anunoby's trade, the team moved up to 4th place in the Eastern Conference standings, just a half game back of the Cavaliers for 3rd, and only 1.5 games back of the Bucks for the 2 seed. So with a lot of basketball left to be played, they very well could finish top 2 in the conference and secure home court advantage until the conference finals. When the Anunoby trade went down, there was some hesitations over the price that they paid for him because it did seem like a lot to give up for someone expected to hit free agency this summer, but assuming they get a contract extension worked out, the pairing has been a match made in heaven. Going back to the original take though, nitpicking over their record against winning teams versus losing teams seems pretty dumb all things considered because pretty much every single team in the league has a worse record against better competition than they do against the teams at the bottom of the standings. However, I will say that it is worth acknowledging that the matchups that heavily weigh down the Knicks' record against those winning teams are the matchups against the Celtics and the Bucks, who are a combined 6-1 against the Knicks this year, and obviously those are the two teams most likely to stand in their way in the Eastern Conference, so while I think it's a bit much to call them overrated, I'm not sure if I can place my trust in them to eliminate either of those two contenders quite yet. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Happy Boy, and he says that the new rule requiring players to play 65 games in order to win awards should not have been made because voters already took those things into consideration amongst other reasons. I chose this take to discuss because I think it nearly nails it on the head entirely. We're already seeing the ramifications of an arbitrary games played limit set on winning awards, and it's only going to get worse. The league tried going this route in order to prevent players from taking as many rest days throughout the season, but not only has it not stopped players from resting on occasion, but it's also incentivized injured players to put their health on the line and risk it in order to make the cut. You all may think that winning awards and being named to things like the All-NBA team and the All-Defense team don't really mean much in the grand scheme of things, but when it comes time for players and their representation to negotiate their next contracts, those things literally affect the amount of money that players can demand in those negotiations. Suffering an injury that causes you to miss more than 17 games in a season can mess with their money in a big way, which results in them trying to play through those injuries, suffering through the pain, which then opens them up to the greater likelihood of re-injuring themselves, and we literally just watched exactly this happen to MVP favorite at the time, Joel Embiid. Embiid's been nursing a swollen knee for a few weeks now, and when he was a late scratch from their game against the Denver Nuggets, the entire basketball world ridiculed him relentlessly, so he then tried to play through the pain a few days later against the Warriors, which resulted in him re-injuring his knee and is now likely out for a long time. Voters already took into account how much a player's production and impact came into play on the year even with the amount of games that they missed, so setting a line at 65 will only cause more bad than good. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.